Welcome into Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is NFL Draft Day. We have a big show. We have our third and final NFL mock draft. We have quarterback breakdowns, where they might go, possible trades up and down the entire first round, and then we will break down a little bit of NBA action from last night as well at the end. But let's just go ahead and get right into it. But before we do, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Leave a tip or donation at the link on the screen right now. That message will pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. We appreciate anything that you do give, and we appreciate all of you for sticking around and watching. But like I was saying, we have a lot to talk about today. The NFL Draft is here. It'll start in just a couple hours from now. But let's get right into it. NFL Draft Day. We take a look at all of the NFL offseason that has led up to this moment. This moment where you have the entire world looking at the next stars of the league, and this draft class is no different. It's very stacked at a lot of very, very good positions. We'll break down the quarterbacks in the second segment, but we're just going to do a full mock draft here in the first. I got all 32 picks. I'll explain some stuff. We got some trades. We'll talk about even more potential trades as the show goes on. It is going to be a big NFL draft show, though. So let's just start right into it. Number one overall pick, what I have for you, is the Bears at number one, taking Caleb Williams. This is not a very controversial pick. This has been in the cards since the beginning of the draft. This has been a lock for the longest time. If they go anywhere else, I think the entire world will lose their minds. Caleb Williams is a lock at number one. He is going to be a special talent. He's the best quarterback in this class. And there's a lot of really good quarterbacks in this class. But where it starts to get interesting is at 2 with the Commanders. We've had a lot of different conflicting reports. All season they have been the team that's on Jaden Daniels. They have been the team that loves Jaden Daniels. And then all this stuff with their agent comes out. And you have an interesting predicament, because Drake May had been before the whole college football season started. If you did a way too early draft, he was that number 2 guy. He was supposed to go number 2 this whole time. It was Caleb 1, Drake May 2, but then season happens, draft happens, Heisman winning happens for Jaden Daniels. He climbs up the board at number 2. There's been some smokescreen for a guy like J.J. McCarthy to go here. There's a lot of things that the Commanders can do, and they've been kept pretty tight-lipped. I do think at the end of the day, they are going to end up taking Jaden Daniels. Jaden Daniels is still, the one that has been rumored to them this whole time. Just because the agent doesn't like it doesn't mean that the Commanders don't need to take the guy that is their favorite. You want in this situation, regardless of your relationship with an agent, you can always get a new agent. Pick the guy that you think is the best. And if they really think that Jaden Daniels is that best possible option for them, then go out and get Jaden Daniels. Don't worry about whatever the rest of the league is thinking. And it would be a very Commanders thing to do. I have them taking Jaden Daniels there at 2, which leads to an interesting scenario. Not one that I have happening, but there has been talks of the Patriots trading out of that number 3 spot. And if Drake May is available at 3, it's going to be a bit of a bidding war. The Giants could trade up, and I would love that as a Giants fan to go get Drake May at 3. You'd have to give up probably your 6th pick and a future first, so it would probably be 2 picks package, and I don't think the Patriots would trade out of the top 10. But the Vikings might be able to put together a package to move up to 3. The Broncos might be able to put up a package to move up to 3. Or maybe they don't really want Jaden Daniels, they want J.J. McCarthy, which has been the rumor surrounding those guys. There's a lot of trade movement that can happen in the top 5. The Chargers could trade out of there at number 5, depending on how this draft goes. But I'm going to keep the top 3 the same. I'm going to keep the Patriots taking Drake May. It's going to be tough to pass up on a guy like that. But when you are at that top 3 pick, you have a chance to get a quarterback like a Drake May, have him fall into your lap. I think that's just the right move. So the Patriots taking him at 3. And now the Cardinals. Again, we talk about all these trades that could happen, and we'll break down more of them and what I think it would take to do that in a second. But Marvin Harrison is just a bust-proof talent. He's a very special talent, very special kid, and I have the Cardinals taking him there at 4. Just it's not something that I think is worth trading. You have Kyler Murray. You have a defense that wasn't the greatest, but they played tough. And you add a Marvin Harrison Jr. to that team. You remember how much better that offense was just at the end of the season when they got Kyler back. Once he has a weapon he can throw to, it's going to be much, much better for the Cardinals this season. And here's where I see the first trade. The Vikings make a big swing and move up to 5, trading with the Chargers, who otherwise would probably have taken Joe Alt there. And there's plenty of other offensive tackles, offensive linemen later in the draft. I have them trading 2 firsts, the 2 firsts that they have, to move up to number 5 and get their guy at quarterback. They get J.J. McCarthy. I am not a J.J. McCarthy fan. And I'll say that with my chest. I will say that loud and proud. Although, this is the one exception. Because if there is anywhere in this entire league that he can succeed, that he can plug and play and be a successful quarterback, it is in Minnesota. You put him in Washington, it's going to be a disaster. You put him in Chicago, it'll be a disaster. You put him in New England, it'll be a disaster. But you give him the weapons, the TJ Hawkinson, the Justin Jefferson, the Jordan Addison, that offensive line, Aaron Jones in the backfield, he can have success in Minnesota. That play calling under Kevin O'Connell, it is probably the only place in the league that would make sense for J.J. McCarthy to go to, that it would work out in. So for J.J. McCarthy's sake, I'm never going to root against a guy. For J.J. McCarthy's sake, I hope he ends up in Minnesota. Because if he doesn't end up in Minnesota, he's going to be a bust, especially if all this hype he's getting keeps him in the top 10, keeps him in the top 5. If he goes to the New York Giants at 6, it's going to be a disaster for the Giants, for J.J. McCarthy. If he goes, Broncos at 12, it's going to be a disaster for him, for the Broncos. It's just a mess. So the Vikings, I think, are going to trade up and get their guy at 5, make sure that no one's going to come in from behind and steal the guy that they love. All reports are they love J.J. McCarthy. So having that pick there, I have them trading up. That's the first pick in the first trade of this draft that I have going on. And that gives us to 6. The Giants, without having J.J. McCarthy or any of those top 4 quarterbacks on the board, take a wide receiver, that being Malik Neighbors. His explosiveness is something that Brian Daboll is going to love, especially with the way that the team is set up. You just lost your big explosive player in Saquon Barkley, and now you get the most explosive player in the draft in Malik Neighbors at 6. You get him going on a slant route, give him the ball, get him the ball in space. His creativity on offense paired with Malik Neighbors, Brian Daboll could do a lot of great things with Malik Neighbors. So I have him going at 6 to the Giants, which leaves the best offensive tackle in the draft to fall all the way to 7. A guy that could theoretically go as high as 4 or 5. Joe Alt is one of the best offensive tackle prospects. He's 6'9", 285 pounds, and he is an athlete. He is really good. We've just saw Penei Sewell get paid, and he's a good comp, I think, for Joe Alt. Joe Alt is a little bit bigger, but he's going to be just as productive as Penei Sewell, who's just coming off an all-pro team. He could come in and be all-pro, have that kind of impact day one. So, Titans, they get a really good one at number 7. And the Falcons are going to take the first defensive player of the draft at the board. I've heard a lot of things connecting them to Dallas Turner. It's kind of cooled down as of late. Liatu Latu is a guy I've heard, but Byron Murphy maybe. They're going to get a pass rusher. I have him mocked with Dallas Turner, the Alabama guy, staying in the SEC country, moving over a state to Georgia, playing for Atlanta. He's going to be a big time pass rusher, the SEC Defensive Player of the Year. He's going to be really good. And I think any of these top pass rushers at the top are going to be really good. And the Bears at number 9 finish off their dream draft, getting Rome Odunze, who is my second favorite receiver in this draft behind Marvin Harrison. You get him, his elite size and speed and jump ball ability on the outside is going to be huge for Caleb Williams. You need just to throw a ball up there, throw it to Rome Odunze. There isn't a better guy in all of college right now. He's winning these balls 70-30. 70% of the time he's winning these balls. It's very, very impressive to see just how good of a prospect he is and what he's able to accomplish. But Rome Odunze is a very special talent, and the Bears pair him with Keenan Allen, who they acquired this offseason. They pair him with, they pair him with DJ Moore, who they acquired last offseason. That is one of the best receiving cores in all of football. You now have a 3-headed monster, and you add Cole Kmet on there on the inside, who's no slouch himself. You get that around a quarterback who has all the potential in the world in Caleb Williams, and the Bears could go. I don't think they're going to be a playoff team this season, but they could go. They could cause some serious issues. And rounding out the top 10, we've been talking about this top 10 for quite some time. I have another trade. Before yesterday, I had the Bengals trading up from 18 with the Jets, swapping firsts and giving up a third for the right to draft Brock Bowers. Brock Bowers, who is very much a special talent. He is a guy that you want to get the ball in the hands. He is Travis Kelce-esque, tight end with receiving talent, one of those special talents that can do it all. I still have a trade happening here, although since the Bengals have now the second trade request from T. Higgins and a new trade request from Trey Hendrickson, not sure if either of those guys are going to actually get traded, but they have new concerns to worry about. They have to fill in that hole in the defensive line, so I don't think they're going to go and trade for Brock Bowers anymore. I do still think a team is going to do it, because I think Brock Bowers is a guy that if he falls past 10, it's going to be... he's not going to get past 11, especially in this mock where I have the Chargers picking at 11. If Brock Bowers can fall to them, if there's a team that really wants Brock Bowers, they need to go trade ahead of the Chargers at 10. So I have the Colts making that move from 15 to 10 to grab Brock Bowers, adding him to an offense that really, aside from Michael Pittman Jr., needs another weapon. Josh Downs was a solid weapon last season. He isn't like that explosive guy, and adding another weapon there, a third guy for Anthony Richardson when he comes back, is going to be huge. So you now have our top 10 of the NFL mock draft out there. Bears 1, Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels to the Commanders at 2, Drake May to the Patriots at 3, Marvin Harrison Jr. to the Cardinals at 4. The Vikings trade up to 5, giving up 11 and 23 to get J.J. McCarthy. The Giants take Malik Neighbors at 6. Titans take Joe Alt at 7. The Falcons take Dallas Turner at 8. Rome Odunze to the Bears at 9. And rounding out the top 10, the Colts trade up 5 spots for a first-round swap and a third-round pick to the Jets for Brock Bowers. That is my top 10. We're going to break down the rest of the draft in the second segment coming up. So stick around. We'll be right back on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't need shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing. Sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, if the news if it's some losing shit, it's stupid if you choose to live or choose to dip, you choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Appreciate everybody for sticking with me through that break. If you are just tuning in, we have done the first 10 picks of our mock draft. The NFL draft is tonight. We are going over our final mock. In this next segment, we are going to attempt to finish up the mock draft. We're going to attempt to get picks 11 to 32 in here. We might have to split it up into a third segment if we do not have the time. But before we get into the second part of the NFL mock draft, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net, leave a tip or donation at that website with a message in it. That message will pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. We appreciate anything you do give. You can control what we talk about here on the show. All you need to do is go to the link that's on the screen right now. That is gsmcpodcast.net, and leave a tip or donation. We appreciate anything that you do give. We appreciate all of you for tuning in and watching. But like I was saying, we're going to continue our NFL mock draft starting at pick 11. We got through our first 10 if you want to go back and see that. So at 11, we have the Chargers, since they made a trade with the Vikings, and the Chargers here are going to get maybe the best defensive player in the draft in Laiatu Latu out of UCLA. The pass rusher there, they need defense, and they need defense bad. They have for a long time struggled on the defensive end, whether it be running or pass defense, for a variety of different reasons: injuries, scheme not working, coaching, whatever it is. Now you have a whole new culture. They're going to go and bring in these bruisers, be defense. We know how Jim Harbaugh likes to coach a football team. I have them taking Latu here at 11. They do have that second first-round pick. So if you were looking for a wide receiver here, it just doesn't make sense at the value, because you're going to be able to get some much better wide receivers at pick 23 later down the board if you are a Chargers fan. And here we reach the Broncos. The Broncos are in a very interesting position because they have a lot of needs, right? They are still dealing with the contract situation that is Russell Wilson. They're still dealing with everything that surrounds that. They got rid of a wide receiver in Jerry Jeudy. They got rid of a lot of key pieces, but they also have maybe one of the worst quarterback rooms in all of the NFL. They have a quarterback room, after adding Zach Wilson recently, that now consists of Zach Wilson, Ben DiNucci, and Jared Stidham. I don't feel comfortable heading into a season like that. And if I'm the Broncos, I have to take a quarterback here at 12. I know there's a lot of different ways they could go. I have them taking Michael Penix Jr. He is my favorite of those those middle tier quarterbacks, that being J.J. McCarthy, Bo Nix, Michael Penix Jr. If you can get him here at 12, it's still a little bit of a reach. He's more of a second-round guy to me, but the way that this draft is going with the amount of quarterbacks that could go in the first round, Peter Schrager said 6 quarterbacks could go. I don't quite think so. I think 5 is way more than is necessary. But Michael Penix Jr. going at 12, it just feels like a necessity for the Broncos to take a quarterback in this situation, and he's the best one available. The Raiders are another team that could take a quarterback. They did just bring in Gardner Minshew, and they had Aiden O'Connell, who, if we're being honest, was not the worst. I am a big Gardner Minshew fan. He's not a long-term answer, but if you're a team like the Raiders that is kind of going through football purgatory right now, getting a guy like Gardner Minshew in there who can right your ship, get you into the playoffs if your team is good enough, is a good spot to be in. You get him, you get Devontae Adams, Jacoby Myers. It's not a bad spot, right? And one of those guys is going to win the battle. I do expect it to be Gardner Minshew. I like him more than Aiden O'Connell, but it doesn't make sense to reach for a guy like Bo Nix here. Bo Nix is the last quarterback that I would even not laugh at you for putting in for drafting in the first round, right? Because of quarterback hype and stuff. Again, Bo Nix is a guy that I wouldn't take until like the third or fourth round. But the quarterback hype that's going around the league, especially surrounding this first round in the draft with so many open quarterback positions and so many top tier quarterbacks out here in this draft cycle, you can think about it. But I have them taking a corner. Teron Arnold, the first corner off the board. I was going back and forth here between him and Kenyon Mitchell. I ended up going with Teron Arnold. He's your more prototypical corner, and the Raiders need corner help pretty badly. The Saints here at 14, everyone knows they're taking an offensive lineman. It comes down to which one. I have them taking Olu Fashanu. He's a big guy, really long, able to come in and take the spot of Ryan Ramczyk, who's dealing with his knee issue. Unsure if he's going to have to retire or not, but he definitely isn't going to be available for at least the beginning of the season. So getting an offensive lineman in there to plug and play like Fashanu is going to be a big part of this Saints offseason. They're definitely going offensive line. They could go a different one. There's a lot of really good offensive linemen in this draft. At 15, we have the Jets after their trade with the Colts. I also have them going offensive line here. I have them taking Troy Fautanu out of Washington. Again, they need offensive line. They need it bad. Just getting a big guy to help come in because the Jets dealt with so many offensive line injuries, and they got two tackles in the offseason. Morgan Moses and guy from the Cowboys. They went and they got offensive line help, but always need more. Offensive line is position of value. You can go and get it here at 15. You don't even need it at 10. You get a little bit of extra draft capital, and you do get that offensive lineman still. 16 to the Seahawks. They need pass rushing. I'm taking Jared Verse. They don't need corner help. They have Witherspoon, and they got their corners recently, so they don't need their corners. They do need pass rushing. So Jared Verse, I have him going here. He's the last of that top-tier edge rusher that I have. He goes to 16 to the Seahawks. Really help out a defensive unit that, if they put pressure on the quarterback, could be one of the better defensive units in the league. Again, that secondary is really solid. It's one of the more underrated secondaries in the league. But I do believe in this Seahawks defense. Getting an edge rusher here, Jared Verse out of Florida State goes 16 to the Seahawks. At 17, what the Jaguars desperately need is a corner. And I have them taking Kenyon Mitchell, who might be the best corner in the draft. There's a lot of hype surrounding him. He didn't allow a touchdown all season. He's very good at football. The Jaguars go out and they get a guy that can help lock down a number one receiver, something that they really struggled with pass defense last season. And now we get to the Bengals. The Bengals, who, like I said, need an inside presence. They lost DJ Reader. They just had Trey Hendrickson request a trade. I have them taking Byron Murphy here at 18 to help fill that hole, help get depth for when they do eventually have to trade Trey Hendrickson. Bengals need that defensive line depth. And the Rams, very similar situation. They had one of the greatest defensive tackles of all time retire in Aaron Donald, and they need to replace that. And you're not going to replace it with one guy, but Johnny Newton is a heck of a start. He is big, physical. He's not going to be Aaron Donald. I don't want to sit here and make you think I'm comparing him to Aaron Donald, because I am not. But he is a very, very good pass rusher, a very, very good run stopper, and the Rams plugging and playing him in that Aaron Donald spot is at least a step in the right direction. You're not going to be able to replace Aaron Donald in one off season. You're not going to be able to do it with one guy. He's one of the best defensive players in the history of the game. You're not going to be able to replace him like that. But you have to give it a shot. And Johnny Newton is my guy that I think the Rams are really going to like, and you can plug and play him there at defensive tackle. Steelers here are in an interesting spot because you have some really good offensive linemen left. You have J.C. Latham, Jackson Powers-Johnson, excuse me, Graham Barton, all these really good offensive tackles that are still left. Amarius Mims is still left. But their offensive line was kind of solid last season. I do have them taking an offensive lineman here. I have them taking J.C. Latham, who is huge. With the Arthur Smith now being the offensive coordinator, we know how much he loves to run the ball. Getting a guy like J.C. Latham in there, who is just a bulldozer, he will move bodies, open up lanes for Jalen Warren and Najee Harris, get the play action more effective. For a guy like Justin Fields, if he ends up starting, Russell Wilson, who also really loves his play action, just really solid offensive lineman, a big guy here at 20. Dolphins lost a lot of offensive line help as well, so at 21, I have them taking Jackson Powers-Johnson. I was going back and forth between him and Graham Barton, both of whom I assume will be playing center. Graham Barton was playing left tackle over at Duke, but he is definitely more of a center or a guard. But I have them taking Jackson Powers-Johnson, who is the number one center in this draft, which leaves the Eagles Nate Wiggins at 22. They need a corner. They need a corner bad. They have James Bradbury and Darius Slay, both of whom are getting older, both of whom kind of lost a step last season. You need another corner, and Nate Wiggins, who ran an incredibly fast 40, is long, is big, is tall, can make that big difference for the Eagles. Putting him in that secondary at the Eagles for 22, they need a corner. If they don't take Nate Wiggins, maybe a guy like Cooper DeJean, who's still available here, might go. Kool-Aid McKinstry, Ennis Rakestraw Jr. There's a lot of great corners here in this draft that might go. I have them taking Nate Wiggins. I love Nate Wiggins as a prospect. He can do a lot of things. He's not my cornerback one, but he is definitely up there. His combine was really good. And at 23, we're going to finish off that Vikings trade. The Chargers finally get their receiver. I have them taking Brian Thomas Jr. out of LSU, the second LSU wide receiver to go in the first round. His deep speed, his deep threat ability is going to be huge. You get your down the play. You pair him across from Josh Palmer after they've lost the rest of their wide receivers. You get a weapon, a first-round weapon, a bona fide wide receiver that, can take attention from the defense. The Chargers need a lot on offense. I expect them. They got some running backs from the Ravens. They got J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards, which does really fit the Harbaugh system, I think. But you have a guy like Justin Herbert, and you're going to let it fly. You need a guy that he can let it fly to, and a speedster like Brian Thomas who, can run really crisp routes as well. Was nothing to scoff at LSU across from Malik Neighbors. Is a really good pick here. So that's the Chargers at 23. We're going to finish off the rest of the NFL draft, picks 24 to 32 in the third segment coming up next here in just a second. So stick around. We'll be right back on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. If you are just tuning in, we have now broken down picks number 1 to pick 23 in the NFL draft that is upcoming tonight. We are going to finish off our mock draft in this segment. Go back and take a look at the other 23 picks if you are curious what your team is doing, what trades I have, and we'll talk a little bit more about possible trades coming up in just a second. But before we finish off our mock draft, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Leave a tip or donation with a message in it. That message will pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. All you need to do is go to the website on the screen right now. That's gsmcpodcast.net. We appreciate anything that you do give. We appreciate you guys sticking around and listening. We appreciate you all for tuning in. So, without further ado, let's just finish off this mock draft, yeah? Like I was saying, we have gotten through pick 23, which, as of right now, is the Vikings pick. I have them trading up to 5, with the Chargers giving up 11 and 23 to go and make that move. So the Chargers are the last pick we have gone over at 23. They've just taken Brian Thomas Jr. out of LSU. The Cowboys are on the clock next, and they need offensive line. They've lost Tyron Smith to the Jets. They let him walk in free agency. They go get the big guy, Amarius Mims. He has some injury concerns, but he is a huge, huge offensive lineman. You can go plug and play him here. He is a very special talent. His size is... I mean, you go look up his height and weight. It is crazy. Coming out of Georgia, again, injury concerns are there, which is why he's falling as far as 24. If he was fully healthy, I believe he would go as high as 15 to the Jets, where I have them making a trade with the Colts. Amarius Mims to the Cowboys at 24. At 25, the Packers are an interesting spot. They're rebuilding their offensive line here, and I think right now the offensive line is still the best spot for them to go. Like I said, it's a very deep offensive lineman class. I have the Packers taking Tyrese Fuaga out of Oregon State to replace that hole at the left side. You know, Bakhtiari is gone. He hasn't really played in the last couple seasons, but he's gone now. You get an offensive lineman to help protect Jordan Love, to help build around the new Josh Jacobs that you've brought in. Give your quarterback more time in the pocket. You get Tyrese Fuaga. He's going to be a big guy, help you out in the offensive line department. Buccaneers at 26, I have taking Chop Robinson. Chop Robinson is a really interesting prospect. He is very athletic and fast, and if you watch him, the way that he gets low, it's almost like he goes horizontal to the ground when he does his pass rushing. The Buccaneers need more pass rushing. They also could go for a corner here. I've seen a lot of people mocking corners to the Bucs. There are a lot of great corners out there, and I don't quite have them taken here because they need pass rush too. You still have your corners for at least one more season, and that's something that you can address in the offseason once some of your corners do decide to leave, or you can re-sign them. They're on the franchise tag right now, so we'll figure that. The Bucs will figure that out later. I have them taking Chop Robinson out of Penn State. He's just fast and can get to the quarterback in a hurry. You know, you have Vita Vea eating them up on the inside. If you have a guy that can come around the outside quickly, it's going to wreak havoc on opposing offenses and quarterbacks and offensive lines. So Chop Robinson I think it's just a good fit for the Buccaneers. I have him going 26 here towards the end of the first round. 27, the Cardinals, again, they need offensive line help. Graham Barton is the best available at this point. He can play any position on the offensive line. He's more suitable to be a center or a guard, but we've seen him be one of the best players, and he was playing on Duke all of last season, and he was playing on the tackle spot. So he's a really special talent at offensive line because you can play him at any of the offensive line positions. It's really rare to find. He's really good at all of them. A little bit undersized, but he'll be fine. I've heard a lot of Jason Kelsey comps in Graham Barton, and it's a pretty good guy to be comped to. So I have the Cardinals grabbing him here at 27. At 28, we have Cooper DeJean going to the Bills. There's a lot of talk of the Commanders trading back into the first to go get an offensive lineman. I could see that happening. I don't have it mocked right now. There's a lot of talk of the Chiefs maybe trading out of that 32 spot. There's a lot of trades that could happen in this bottom 5 of the draft. Just a team that really wants a guy that doesn't really want to give up too much, will move a little further up in the draft, help control that 5th-year option instead of taking them in the 2nd and losing that option. But the Bills, I have here taking Cooper DeJean after they lost both of their safeties and their big corner in Tre'Davious White. They need secondary help. Cooper DeJean is a guy that can play safety and corner. He's versatile in that way. He wants to come in as a safety. He wants to come in as a corner. He could play boundary corner. We'll see how that goes. If it doesn't work, you can plug and play him there at safety. There's openings all across this Bills secondary for him to go plug and play, get a spot, get some playing time. So I have the Bills taking him here at 28. The Lions, along the same lines. They need a corner bad. They need a corner. I have him taking Kool-Aid McKinstry. He is a little hurt. He'll be fine. Come back, play for the Lions. Lions draft. The Lions are the host city. They've been busy recently. Like I referenced earlier, they paid Penei Sewell. They paid Amon-Ra St. Brown yesterday. Kool-Aid McKinstry to help shore up that secondary is going to be a huge get for them. Something that would be absolutely huge for a team like the Lions that have been struggling on pass defense for a little while. The Ravens here at 30, I think this is a spot where the the Commanders might come up and trade, try to get the last of the top-tier offensive linemen. Tyler Guyton is who I have the Ravens taking. They need to replace Morgan Moses, who was traded to the Jets. Again, Ravens, very good team. I could see the Commanders putting a package together to go get an offensive lineman like Tyler Guyton. I don't have that mocked here, but I do have the Ravens taking Tyler Guyton here at 30. And now we are reaching the bottom of our draft. There's 2 picks left. And the 49ers are the one that gave me maybe the most trouble in all of this draft, because the 49ers are such a complete team. There aren't a lot of needs. They could use an offensive lineman, but at the position that they're at, they aren't quite in a position to get one of those top-tier offensive linemen. You could see them trade. There's been a lot of talks about trading Brandon Ayuk, and if they do that, maybe they grab one of those wide receivers at the end of the draft. I don't have them trading Brandon Ayuk in this mock. If they do, I expect them to take a wide receiver here. There's plenty of great receivers available. You know, Xavier Worthy is one. Xavier Legette is another. There's a lot of really great receivers out there. Troy Franklin, a lot of really good receivers that you can take here at the end of the first. But as it stands now, I have them taking a corner. I have them taking Ennis Rakestraw Jr. He is a long corner, and with the expiring corner depth on the 49ers, those guys are fine, but they only have 1-year contracts. You can't sign both of them. And you could always upgrade at that position. That was one of their weaker positions all season long. Their pass rush was amazing. Their linebacker core was amazing. Their safeties were really good. Their corners and their pass defense, when the pass rush wasn't getting there, was a little bit of an issue. So you now get a guy, Ennis Rakestraw Jr., fill out that corner depth, and we have hit pick 32. Pick 32, the Chiefs need a receiver. Rashee Rice is going through his legal issues, not sure if he's going to be on the field or not at all this season. You can go get a guy in Xavier Worthy who you can kind of use as pseudo Tyreek Hill, and the reason that I'm saying this is because of his speed, I know, and he doesn't quite do all the same things that Tyreek Hill does, but you get a speedy guy. Patrick Mahomes is the arm to get it to him. He just set a combine record. There's a lot of great receivers out there that the Chiefs could be taking. Plenty of them to go around. You talk about Adonai Mitchell, also out of Texas. Keon Coleman from Florida State. There's a lot of really good wide receivers that people could take here, and that the Chiefs could take here, and I expect them to take at least one of them here at the end of the first round. I have them taking Xavier Worthy because of his speed. The speed's a game changer. Speed wins you games. We've seen it so many times recently. I have the Chiefs taking Xavier Worthy at 32. So that right there is my mock draft. I'll run through the names real quick for you guys before we end this third segment. Caleb Williams 1 to the Bears, Drake May 2 to the Commanders, Jaden Daniels 2 to the Commanders, Drake May 3 to the Patriots, Marvin Harrison 4 to the Cardinals, J.J. McCarthy to the Vikings in a trade. At 5, the Vikings give up both of their first-round picks. The Giants get Malik Neighbors at 6. The Titans get Jewalt at 7. The Falcons get Dallas Turner at 8. Rome Odunze to the Bears at 9. Brock Bowers to the Colts at 10 in a trade with the Jets. To a pick swap and a third-round pick. Chargers get Liatu Latu at 11. Broncos grab their quarterback in Michael Penix at 12. 13, Teron Arnold to the Raiders. Saints get the offensive lineman at 14, Olu Fashanu. Jets get their offensive lineman after the trade, and 15 with Troy Fautanu. Seahawks, 16, Jared Verse. Kenyon Mitchell to the Jaguars at 17. Byron Murphy to the Bengals at 18. Johnny Newton to the Rams. J.C. Latham to the Steelers at 20. Jackson Powers Johnson, Dolphins, 21. 22, the Eagles get Nate Wiggins. Chargers get Brian Thomas Jr. at 23. The Cowboys get Amarius Mims at 24. Talise Fauga to the Packers at 25. Chop Robinson to the Bucks at 26. Graham Barton, Cardinals at 27. The Bills get Cooper DeJean at 28. The Lions get Kool-Aid McKinstry at 29. Tyler Guyton to the Ravens at 30. Ennis Rakestraw Jr. to the 49ers at 31. And last but not least, Xavier Worthy goes 32 to the Chiefs. That is my first round mock draft. We'll see what happens tonight. Lots of stuff could change. Lots of different draft day scenarios. Lots of different trades that could still happen. Appreciate everybody for sticking with me through that mock draft. I know that took a little bit. But in our fourth and final segment, we're going to move into the NBA. We're going to talk about some of the action from last night. The Celtics lose after just getting shot out of the building by the Miami Heat, and the Thunder come back in loud fashion. They just dominate the Pelicans. So we'll talk about those games and more coming up in the fourth and final segment here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jeremy Lapidus. If you're just tuning in, we have just finished a full first-round mock draft. We broke down all 32 picks, talked about the fit for each one, possible trades, as draft day is tonight. So if you want to go check that out, see what I thought your team would be doing, go take a look at the last 3 segments. We did the first 10 picks in the first segment, and the next 13 in the second, and then we finished off the last 9 or so in the third segment. In this fourth segment, like I was saying, we are going to talk about the NBA playoffs. You have 2 games from last night, 2 very different outcomes from the first game that happened. We'll break them all down. But before we do, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net, leave a tip or donation with a message in it. That message will pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. Appreciate anything that you do give. Appreciate all of you for sticking around and staying with me through this show. Like I was saying, go to that link on the screen, gsmcpodcast.net. We appreciate anything you give. Let's get right into the NBA, shall we? The NBA playoffs continue to roll. More games tonight. But we had 2 games last night, made games to go for almost every single series now, I believe. The first game of the night was between the Celtics and the Heat, and the Heat caught fire from 3. If you remember, what pushed them through the playoffs last season was their insane 3-point shooting, and it's back. You don't want to predict it because they weren't the greatest 3-point shooting team throughout the regular season, but something about the Heat magic in the playoffs, they just don't miss from 3. They shot 53% from the 3-point line as a team. 53%. That's not normal. That's not something that they should be counting on all the time, but they win by 10 against the Celtics. The Celtics are a very, very, very good team. They had 2 of their players, Drew Holiday especially, and Kristaps Porzingis, both of them were inefficient. Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum both combined and had a really, really, really good game. They come in here and they score 61 points on like 63% true shooting. They had really good games, but the Heat made a franchise record number of threes. They made 23 threes. It's a franchise record. They were cooking from downtown. They could not miss. They shot 53%. 53% from 3. And if you can shoot like that every night, you're going to win a lot of games. I don't want to count on the Heat to do this every night, but they have shown the ability to do it. It took them all the way to the NBA Finals last year. If they can do this long enough, they can take down the Celtics, and that would be one of the biggest upsets of all time. The Heat, of course, it would be the Heat to do this. That's just what the Heat do in the postseason, I guess. They just start making all their threes. Tyler Hero had a great game, 24 and 14. Really, all their shooters had a good game. They all, like I said, they shot 53% from 3. You're not going to find a guy that's not shooting well when a team as a whole is shooting 53% from 3. I can't get over that. That is crazy. But the other game, the Thunder Pelicans, which was probably the best out of all of the game ones over the weekend, they come together and the Thunder just blow them out. The defense from the Thunder is what really stuck out to me. The Pelicans couldn't get anything done. They were hounded by the Thunder defense. Jalen Williams was really impressive. It's really what it came down to. Their defense they just outclassed them. Really, at the end of the day, there wasn't a lot that the Pelicans could do. It wasn't all bad for the Pelicans. They had some bright spots. CJ McCollum made some tough shots. Not really what you want to be the highlight of the. Not what you want to be the highlight of the game, that they made some tough shots, but they fall behind 2-0 to a really hungry Thunder team. Excuse me. Dominant. When you shoot 26% from 3, it definitely doesn't help. No one on the bench made a single 3-pointer. Not really a great spot to be in. All of your starters, you got blown out in this game. They just kind of outclassed them. Chet Holmgren had a really solid game. All of the Thunder starters were in double figures. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander put up 33 points. Jalen Williams was the one I was really impressed with, defensively at least. He was just huge for them on defense. They got some really quality minutes out of a lot of guys off the bench. Isaiah Joe was really impressive. He was 2 for 2 from 3. He had a couple big shots to really help them pull away in the first half. But it really was just utter domination by the Thunder in this game. There really wasn't much else outside of that. It was just domination. They didn't really give the Pelicans much of a chance to come back. That defense was suffocating. The defense really, really held strong and helped them even when they weren't going through their best shooting stretch, which they shot really well throughout the whole game. It was just a much different game than the one that New Orleans won, that New Orleans almost won in Game 1. If they are able to, keep that up for the rest of the series, I mean, New Orleans didn't play a bad game. Oklahoma City came to play. They hit, again, 50% from 3, 59%. The three-point shooting really is the big disparaging factor here. They just kind of outclassed them. And this is what more will be expected than that first game when it came down to the buzzer. The Pelicans, I just don't think have enough to keep up with a team like the Thunder. Which is a shame, because the Pelicans, if they had Zion, I think this would be a really entertaining series. And it sucks that he's not here, but you just have to deal with what you have to deal with. And unfortunately, injuries are a part of the sport. So, unfortunately, that's just how it goes sometimes. But anyway, lots to talk about. 3 more NBA games today. The Knicks play Game 3 of their series. It's back in Philly for the first time. That's at 7:30. Orlando, also down 0-2, goes home for the first time against the Cavs. And also down 0-2, the Lakers host their first home game against the Nuggets. So trying to see if the home court advantage really is that big of a difference for some of these teams. If they go down 3-0, all of these teams, I think they're done. I think the 76ers will take this one. I think the Cavs are just going to finish off the Magic, and the Nuggets, I think, are going to finish off the Lakers. The Sixers need to win this game if they have any chance. Joel Embiid said that he still thinks they can win this series, and all they need to do is beat the Knicks at home. They're favored by 5.5, but lots of close spreads on these games. I'm going Cavs, Sixers, Nuggets in this one. But anyway, check back in tomorrow, see if I was right or wrong. We'll break down the NFL draft tomorrow. We'll do MLB power rankings, all of that and more. Thank you, everybody, so much for tuning in today to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I've been your host, Jeremy Lapidus. I will be back here same time, same place tomorrow. You guys have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet. Damn, ain't that